Welcome, my sourdough students, to Debbie's Sourdough Baking Class 101. So in this sourdough baking class, we're going to cover pretty much all the basics: how to refresh your starter, how to prepare the dough, how to shape the dough, how long to wait, how long to let it proof, and so forth. So the first thing we want to do when we're getting ready to make a loaf of sourdough bread is refresh the starter. Now, oftentimes if I haven't used my starter for a while, I'll want to refresh it at least a couple of times. For this one, I'm going to do a 1:5:5 ratio because I've already refreshed it once before and I'm about to use it, and I have good success with doing a 1:5:5 ratio. So I have 20 grams of starter. I'm going to add 100 grams of water. There we go. From here, I'm now going to add 100 grams of flour to give me my 1:5:5 ratio. I now have too much starter for this jar. So if I were to leave it as is, and if it were to double, triple, or even quadruple, it might overflow. So I'm going to discard some of it. For my recipe, for my dough, I only need about 100 grams of sourdough starter. I'm gonna let this rest for several hours. I'm gonna cover it up and leave it at room temperature. Right now it's about 70, 72 degrees here. And we'll be back in just a few hours. Good morning. We're ready with the starter. It's been about 16 hours at 70 degrees room temperature, and our starter basically has tripled in size. So I'm going to show you a picture of what it looked like at its peak when it was bubbling, and then a little bit later the starter started to collapse. So here's some video of it actually collapsing in place. For now, we're going to go ahead and make our dough. We have 500 grams of bread flour. To that, we're going to add just 2 teaspoons of salt. 2 teaspoons works pretty well. Into the flour with our 350 grams of water. We're going to add about 100 grams or 20% of starter. We're going to mix up the starter until it's pretty well dissolved. From there, we're basically going to add the flour. From here, I'm going to go ahead and use a dough whisk to mix it up. You could also use a regular wooden spoon. As you're going to see, it starts getting to be pretty clumpy. You want to also make sure all of the flour gets incorporated with the water. You pretty much see that I've got just a big, shaggy mess. All right, we pretty much have our dough settled in there. It's all incorporated. We are going to cover it up. I didn't show you these nifty little bonnets, and this way I can just cover up my dough, let it sit on the counter for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and from there we'll begin stretch and folds and coils. We'll be demonstrating that shortly. See you in a little bit. And we're back getting ready to work with our dough. So it's been sitting for about 30 minutes. What we're going to do is I'm going to be dipping my hand into water. That way my hand doesn't stick to the dough. And what I want to do is what's called either stretch and folds, or I like to call them scoop and folds. And basically I'm taking the dough and any parts that might actually be a little bit dry and getting some moisture to it. From there, I've started to do some stretches and folds. So you take the dough, stretch it up, and then fold it over itself. Rotate, stretch, and then fold it over itself. And I do a few rounds of that, maybe 4 or 6 times or so. So we're gonna put this back on our dough and let it sit for another 20-30 minutes, and we'll be right back. So it's been about 30 minutes, and let's take a look after our first stretch and fold, or scoop and fold. You'll see the dough is now a lot smoother. From here, you could continue to do a series of stretch and folds every 30 minutes. I've actually found that coil folds have been working a little bit better, so let me demonstrate that. I'm going to go ahead and dip both hands in water and then reach in on the sides and lift up, and on the front, you see how the front is sticking? Once it releases, then I fold it underneath. I rotate the bowl 180 degrees, a little more water as I need it, and lift the front edge again until it releases from the bowl, and then I fold it underneath. And I do this 4 times. This time I just rotated 90 degrees, and I lift up the front edge, and now it's releasing easier, and I fold it underneath 180, do the other side, and sometimes I have to give it a little encouragement and then fold it under. We're going to be doing 3 more sets of coil folds, each one about 20 or 30 minutes apart, letting the gluten rest in between, and then we'll do some more coil folds. We'll be right back. And again, it's been about 30 minutes, so we've done 1 set of stretch and folds and 1 set of coil folds. So from here, again, we're going to reach in the middle. We're going to stretch till the front releases, and then we fold it over. Do it again till the front releases, then we fold it over 90 degrees, lift up and fold. You can see how now it's really, really smoothed out with just a little bit of work, and fold. A big difference already in how the gluten is forming, it's smoothing out. We have 2 more sets that we're going to do. This one was number 2. We'll be back in 30 minutes. And here we are, we're ready for coil set number 3. Fold underneath, and 1 more. And that was set number 3. We'll be back once again for the final set, and then what we're going to do with the dough after that. See you shortly. Okay, we're down to the last set of coil folds. So let's do this, same thing, lift, fold, lift, fold. This time we're going to go ahead and place it in our oversized measuring cup. I got this because it has nice straight sides, and from here I can keenly observe the bulk fermentation, which is basically our first proofing. So what I do is I take a look at the measurement at where it begins. I'm going to bulk ferment it or proof it approximately 30%. You're going to find a lot of people will bulk ferment more than 30%. Some say double in size. However, you run the risk of overproofing it. So I really don't want to overproof it. If you go to 30%, 50%, you have less risk of overproofing. From here, I'm going to cover it up with one of my bonnets. And because I have to go out for a couple hours, I'm going to put this into the refrigerator to slow down the bulk fermentation process. If I didn't have to run out, then I could just have it sit on the counter, and in a couple of hours, it would probably bulk ferment 30% of its current volume. And from there, I'm going to stick it in the fridge. We'll come back after that, and hopefully it'll be ready and we can begin to shape it for the basket. See you in a few hours. So I just took this out of the refrigerator after we were out of the house for the last 4 hours. So I'm going to have it sit on the counter, room temperature. We're about 70 degrees. I'm going to check it about every half hour or so while it sits on the counter to see when it gets up to line, which is our 30% bulk fermentation. At that point, we'll go ahead and turn it out and shape it. So we'll be back shortly. And so we have our dough, and it's only been sitting out at room temperature for an hour and a half. And I'm glad I checked it because it is already up to the 30% mark. We're going to go ahead and start using flour. We're gonna dust our counter with flour as well as our hands, and we're gonna turn out the dough. It has a fair amount of bubbles in there, so we don't really want to deflate it as much as possible. We want to keep the bubbles intact. Okey-doke. From here, dust both hands, and I'm just going to encourage it to spread it out just ever so slightly, keeping it very gentle. I can see some bubbles forming already. And there's a variety of different ways that you can actually fold your dough before you're going to be placing it in a basket. The one that I've been using lately that has been working out pretty well is basically folding it in quarters, as you see here, coming in from the side, folding it inward, from the back here to the side. Now I've got 4 corners. I'm going to do the same, bring it in, this corner in, this corner in, and this corner in. So I'm basically creating almost like a bun. I'm going to invert it, and then I'm going to slide it across the counter. I'm pulling the dough towards me, sliding it on the counter so that this side starts to get taut. You want to basically create a taut surface on the dough. So I'm pulling it towards me. You can see it rolling on the counter towards me. And then it gets taut on this side. Sticks a little bit to me, so I put a little bit more flour. When I rotated it on the counter because I'm trying to eliminate that seam on the bottom. And I pull it towards me, rotate, pull it towards me. You can see again how this seam, or this, the bottom of it is rolling against the counter. So I'll do that a few times and then tuck it in. I used to cover it with a towel. Don't really need to anymore. It does just fine sitting out. And we'll let it sit for about 20 minutes and rest. So our dough has been resting for about 20 minutes. I also wanted to show you the baskets that we're going to be turning it into. There's a variety of wicker baskets you can purchase at different sizes and shapes. It also can come with a liner. I find if I don't use the liner, you do need to dust it with some flour and then some rice flour so that the dough won't stick if you don't use a liner. If you use a liner or a tea towel, I find you really don't need to dust it at all. I've never had a dough stick to a basket that has a liner. And if you don't have a basket, you could use basically any kind of a bowl of any shape virtually and line it with a tea towel. So I'm not going to use a bowl today. I'm going to use, actually this is my latest one that I've been enjoying, and I like putting a tea towel in it because the insert that came with it, I kind of used it and abused it too much so. So I'm going to have my tea towel ready to go for my dough. Now that it's been resting, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit more sliding across the counter. And again, you see how we're making it taut once more. A little bit more flour to keep my hands from sticking. And we'll do a couple of these before we turn it out into the basket. Now I'm going to be doing a little bit of an oblong shape, which it is now. And I don't know if you can see from there. We've got a couple little bubbles, so I'm just going to pinch those. If I don't pinch them, then on the surface of the dough, you're going to have a bit of a gap between the crumb and the crust. Not that it's that big of a deal, but we try to minimize that. I'm going to then place it into my basket upside down. When we actually put it in the oven, you'll see why. I used to use one of my bonnets to cover it, but now lately I've just been covering it with the tea towel, and then I place it into the refrigerator for 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, sometimes even 48 hours. We've only bulk fermented it to 30%, so if it rises a bit in the refrigerator, that's gonna work out just fine. In a day or so, let's see what happens. We're gonna turn it out and bake it off. See you in a little bit. Good morning. We're ready to bake our bread. So, one of the first things we have to do is turn the oven on to 450 degrees for about 45 minutes. And you also want the racks of the oven to be at the lower third of your oven. And I preheat it with the Dutch oven inside. One of the first things we're going to need is parchment paper because it helps us to transfer the dough into the hot Dutch oven that has preheated. The other thing we're going to need is our bread lam, which is basically a razor blade inside a holder. This helps so that you don't cut yourself. The purpose of the Dutch oven is that the cold dough from the refrigerator inside the hot Dutch oven will release steam. And it's that enclosed environment with the hot steam that creates the oven spring, the dough that explodes and opens up inside the Dutch oven. And the location of where you have scored it is going to make all the difference in the world because that's where it's going to open up. So you're basically telling it where you want the dough to open up during the oven spring. And you'll see that when we are finished baking the first part of the dough and open up the Dutch oven. Alrighty, let's see how our dough is doing. It's looking mighty fine, beautiful. Now, as you recall, we placed the dough upside down into our basket. The reason being, now when we turn it out, it goes right side up. So I use the parchment, I cover up the dough in the basket and invert again, slide my hand out, lift up on the basket, and then the tea towel comes off very easily, doesn't stick at all. From here, what I like to do is spritz it with water. This is an optional item. By spritzing it with water, it'll create a little bit more steam inside the hot Dutch oven. And secondly, it'll create some real nice bubbles on top, which you'll see after it's fully baked. With our lam, we are going to score it. I'm basically going about 1/4 of an inch to maybe 1/2 an inch at most, and I'm scoring it at an angle so I can get a nice ear. You'll see what the ear looks like when we're done. So I go all the way from the edge of the dough, cutting across as much as possible without tearing it. And other times I'll do some additional scoring. You're going to need your gloves. Place it carefully into the Dutch oven and then close it and seal it tightly. You want to make sure there's no leakage on the Dutch oven. I'm going to bake it for 25 minutes at 450 degrees. And after that time, we'll take a look at it and see if we've gotten the good oven spring. See you in a few minutes. And now for the big reveal. Are you excited? I'm really excited. To be honest with you, this is actually the best part of the whole process, to see how we did with the bulk fermentation, the proofing, coming out of the fridge. Let's see if we get the oven spring we're looking for. All right, here we go. Oh, we have a good oven spring. You'll see this beautiful ear right here. What I'm going to do now is take it out of the Dutch oven so that the rest of it can brown. It's still pretty soft. Take a look at the bottom. If the bottom's getting too brown, this isn't too bad, but I'm going to go ahead and put a cookie sheet in there just to reduce the browning. And that's a beautiful loaf. I'm sorry, that's really pretty. Okay. Let's go for another 10 to 15 minutes at 450 so it can now brown and get just more gorgeous. I'm excited. So it's been in the oven about 10 minutes to brown. Let's take a look, see if we think it might be ready. I'm going to turn the oven off. And, aha! Oh boy. Okay. This is looking really good. And if you look carefully again, you see this beautiful ear. It's had a great expansion because we spritzed it with water. We've got some beautiful bubbly spots on the surface. The last thing I want to double check is to make sure that it's fully baked. You want your loaf to be above 200 degrees, usually between 200 and 210. So I'm going to use an instant read thermometer, and as you can see, it's actually at 210. So from here, they say, whoever they are, that you should let it sit for an hour or more before you cut it. But honestly, can you really wait that long? I usually wait at most a half hour, if that. Have a cube of butter, be ready to go. This is really fun. Hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.